Hi, I'm Angelique. I'm the newish president of the Skillman Foundation. And at Skillman, we have spent over 60 years investing in children and youth in Detroit so that they could lead us to the tomorrow we all envision. When I started about 9 months ago, I walked into this President's Youth Council that had been set up for me. And the council is actually part of a legacied history of youth councils in Michigan. It's one of the things that makes Michigan pretty unique. And so building on that history, Skillman started a youth council. There are 13 council members. When I started, they ranged from 12 to 22. Now they're all a year older. Some are in middle school, some are in high school, some newly to college, and some in their early career. And as I would come to find out, they have all long been involved in community, in organizing, on serving on other youth councils, entrepreneurship, and some have even created their own foundation. After the youth council was formed, Skillman had engaged them a few times, asking them questions. How are you doing? What do you think you need right now? What does Detroit need right now? Really important questions as we were in the midst of a pandemic. So I met with them. This was the first meeting I actually took before I officially began. And after 20 minutes with this group, I understood that they wanted to do more than talk. And that is very emblematic of this generation, that they want to actually put their fingerprints all over the heart of strategy and to play a role in co-designing what comes next. I knew that this group would change me, would challenge me, and would change the foundation and challenge the foundation, and that we would be better for it. So since that first meeting, the young people became grant makers. We put $100,000 on the table, and they decided how it would be given away. We didn't do it to teach them our ways and sit behind the glass and say, did you do it right? We did it to learn from them. And so they contacted nonprofits, they researched them, they came in with fact sheets, they looked at 990s, and then they used ranked choice voting to make their decisions. In terms of reporting, they had decided that that should really be up to the nonprofit, and that a video could suffice, a social media post could suffice, and so we took notes. They now direct all of the youth programming for the council. They pulled together youth organizers and met with them 2 weeks ago to prepare for this panel. We will be going to Wyoming later this summer to do a cultural exchange with indigenous youth, and they will interview and hire the next round of youth council cohort members. Today we're going to meet and talk to Jeremiah and Logan and Mohammad, but I want to emphasize that as incredible as these humans are, they are really emblematic of Detroit youth in general. I am talking about, and then we'll have a conversation with them and invite each of you to the conversation. If you've just come into the room, come have a seat, join. Have some food served, and when that happens, I'll make sure that everybody gets the food that they need. So let me ask a question, and let me get this rolling. How many in this room are baby boomers? Okay, so we've got like a smattering, maybe a fifth. So you all are really pioneers of many of the street protests that we are seeing today. You recognized injustice, you took to the streets, and your actions led to massive change in voting rights and in women's rights. How many Gen Xers are in the room? Oh my goodness, look at all of us. So we are the latchkey generation. We were raised in some ways by television. And we also created a cultural revolution that resulted in the rise of hip hop, of graffiti, of prints, of the dot-com business and of a relaxed workplace culture. Okay, millennials. So, I'm forever grateful for that. Thank you. So enter Gen Z. While disrupting the status quo like other generations before, this generation has been wholly shaped by experiences that were once in a century, and in some cases, once in history. Their political consciousness was shaped by the back-to-back presidencies of Obama and Trump. Their school experiences formed under the ongoing realities of school shootings, and then remote learning and pandemic life. And their global connectivity over social media has allowed for online revolutions and movement building at a pace and scale we've never experienced. So point blank, as many of you know, this generation is different. They're creative, and they're authentic, and they're unwilling to accept incrementalism or pageantry. And I want to be really clear, this is a moment for radically reimagining systems to be more equitable and more just. And so we desperately need them to not only be at the table, but we need to remove every barrier out of the way so that they can lead us to where we need to go. Gen Z was born between 97 and 2012. They're 10 to 25 years old. So raise your hand if you have a Gen Z person in mind who you love. Okay, write that name down in your phone or on a piece of paper and refer to it while we're talking today. So the emerging majority that we talk about, it is arriving in real time with Gen Z, 48% of whom are people of color. Also, 1 in 5 identify as LGBTQIA+. 1 in 3 know someone who uses a gender-neutral pronoun. They are very socially astute and engaged. Remember, after the murder of George Floyd, young people, and in particular, young Black and brown young people, led multi-generational, multicultural uprisings that happened across the globe for weeks on end, resulting in the largest protests in American history. And in addition to racial justice, young people really are concerned about climate change and immigrant rights and community health and school safety and discipline. And they see this all as interconnected. They see the interconnectivity of identity and of systems. They are entrepreneurial. 45% of Gen Z report being very likely to start their own business one day. We will meet Logan shortly, who is the CEO of his own company. And Gen Z is poised to be the most economically powerful of all current generations. And this is one of the most defining characteristics: authenticity and honesty. And this is going to determine how they make their money, where they shop and invest, and more. Gen Z does not fall for corporate window dressing of an inclusive statement made during Pride Month. They do not fall for racial equity statements that aren't followed by concrete steps and transparency. The future of work, 2/3 of Gen Zers prioritize working for an employer that shares their values. So think about all the conversations about talent shortage and how to solve for it. Values, authenticity, integrity. And while mental health is finally something as a nation that we're talking about, Gen Z is extremely comfortable stating clearly that mental health and wellness is a priority. This extends to how they look at the larger population at a collective community health. And wealth, actually. So despite pandemics, despite trauma, despite deep political and social divides, despite so often seeing innocent citizens slain, at times by sworn protectors, despite learning that dark skin is so often unprotected and at times criminalized, this is a hopeful, extremely hopeful generation. And I would argue that perhaps because of all that they've faced, hope is their motivator. They offer great insights, inventive ideas, technological know-how, and most of all, inspiring vision. So the question is, are we ready? I want to welcome our Youth Council to the stage for conversation.
Joining Angelique Power on stage, please welcome members of the Skillman Foundation's Youth Council, Mohammad, Muntakim, Logan, Newman, and Jeremiah Steen.
You've got this. So excited. We came in here yesterday and took pictures of us sitting in these seats. So thank you for joining us today. I want to take a moment to formally introduce you. Jeremiah is a student at the University of Detroit Mercy, pursuing a degree in communications. He's a partnerships manager for the Environmental Leadership Program and Ray Diversity Fellowship Program, and a development associate of institutional giving for the National Audubon Society. Jeremiah is the director of the Steen Foundation, an organization he founded to positively impact the socialization of youth, promote strong inquisitive thinking, and help teens advance their view of community through a creative perspective. He serves on the board of directors for trashmob.eco and EE-Equal. Logan is a day trader and network marketing professional. He's a third-year student at Ferris State University studying marketing and business administration. Logan is a former educator in Trade House Investment Group, the world's largest minority-run investment group. He is the CEO and founder of 94 Feet, Inc., host of the Crash and Boards podcast. I mean, right? He's passionate about increasing financial literacy among youth and creating positive social and political change in his community. Mohammad is studying public health at Wayne State University and plans to enroll in medical school after completing his undergraduate studies. He is a community organizer and advocate for justice and hopes of raising the standards of healthcare in his community. As a high school student, Mohammad successfully campaigned to have Muslim holidays observed in the Detroit public school system, the largest public school system in our state. Mohammad helped launch and now serves as co-director of Detroit Muslims Youth Council and 482 Forward, an education organizing network in Detroit, where he also serves as program manager. Welcome, the panel. So that's your bio. Can you tell us briefly, in 2 to 3 minutes, who are you and what do you believe in? And Jeremiah, get us going.
Sure. Yeah, so I would say my role in philanthropy and development, I kind of got a jump start. I actually got a chance to serve on several youth councils before actually coming to Skillman. And I learned innately right off the bat that a lot of the organizations that I was working for were saying it was youth-led, it was youth-funded, youth-developed, and youth weren't actually the ones that were actually leading in those spaces. I noticed that when donors would come into these spaces, the youth were the ones who were trotted out and put in front, but as soon as those donors left, those youth were put back into those spaces eating pizza and not actually developing. It was passive consumption and not active production. And so then I had a chance to actually go work at the Jane Goodall Institute and learn the power of philanthropy and community development and framing. And so I came home, started my own foundation to ensure that youth actually had a space where they could actually make a difference and actually use their voice to create solutions and be listened to. And so I think that big piece for me is ensuring, the big piece for me is to ensure that youth have a place where their voice is amplified anywhere they can. And then Skillman has played a major role in that. So for me, ensuring youth voice is amplified in every space possible. No matter the industry, no matter the time, no matter where, but ensuring the youth voice is amplified. So that's me.
Thank you. Mohammad.
Yeah, for me, my parents chose to leave their perfect lives and immigrate across the Atlantic, and they chose to bet on a city called Detroit nearly over a decade ago to raise their families. So for me, I went through the Detroit public school system and also currently studying in the city. And as growing up in Detroit, as a student, and even now, there's often a rhetoric associated with the city, especially young people in the city. You've all heard the terms where used false narratives about an achievement gap being in the city. But from our experiences, collective experiences, and the things we have seen from our experiences is that there's not a achievement gap. There's an opportunity gap that we see within our communities. And for me in this space is to uplift and vocalize the need to invest in young people. And I think the term of investment is not just funding schools. There's so many unique ways to invest in young people. A lot of ways to fund youth-led opportunities, to fund resources that are impacting communities, and engage young people and give them spaces and access to lead in different formats. So for me, the thing that stands out is meaningful investing in young people, and more importantly, investing in young people from my community, and especially my hometown of Detroit.
Thank you. Ask Mohammad at some point about how he got started as an organizer. It's a really great story at some point during the conference. Logan.
Ooh, where do I start? So I have a very diverse background, but just very short. I grew up in the space where I did everything. Went to school, got a degree, worked for corporate, and I decided that the old norms that were created aren't sufficient for young people to strive and not just survive in the world and in the economy. There's a lot of youth out here who feel that the current systems are in place, don't let them thrive in these areas. So I'm very big on entrepreneurship and empowering, educating, and enriching young youth with financial literacy skills so they can be equipped with these skills to walk into a bank and get a loan, so they can start a business, so they can properly create jobs, because the jobs that are created, we were just talking about this, how the federal minimum wage is $7.25, but gas is $8.19. And that's very unfair, because that means an hour of my time is worth a gallon of gas, when how about I can go in the bank and with the education and skill set that I have and get a loan so I can be able to create my own business, so I can create jobs. And that's why I created 94 Feet Media, so I can create jobs for Black and brown youth, so we don't have to struggle and we can also live equitably.
Thank you. So much of what we are talking about at this conference is about making Michigan competitive, and I want to ask about what that means. But first, let's flip that. So you're brilliant, clearly, and powerful, clearly. What does Michigan need to do to ensure you stay here? So Mohammad, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think when we talk about making Michigan more competitive or retaining the talent we have, oftentimes as institutions or entities, we look at only one industry or individual to give us a strong, sustainable community, a thriving community. But in pursuit of that, I think we forget about the most important aspect, which is people, the collective of humanity. So I think in order to retain folks in Michigan, make Michigan more competitive, I think we ought to invest in people, invest in communities, invest in the future. And the idea of shared prosperity that we talk about can't be just a talking term. We have to turn that into reality. So I think now the question rises, how do we do that? I think firstly, investing in communities, providing families with equitable resources that they need to get to where they want. And then secondly, engaging young people in conversations. So engaging young people in conversations and making sure the decision-making rooms that are in this state reflect the communities that they're making decisions for. I think that is essential. And then lastly, I think when we talk about in terms of providing that equitable resource, when we provide investments, provide institutions with different resources, we're doing it equitably. we can't just focus on providing equal access. We have to do it equitably. And because we don't want Michiganders and Detroiters, especially, just to be pawns in a capitalistic system. We need them to be valued citizens that can pursue their dignified lives. So when we make investments in the state, we have to look at equity before we look at different aspects of it. So I think in all sectors, especially the public sectors of the state, when we fund those equitably, we provide resources equitably, then we can see a vast majority of our communities want to be here. We give them the importance that they deserve, because currently that's not the circumstance.
Jeremiah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then going off of Mohammed's point about opportunity, I'm really huge on building out sustainable youth career pathways, right? So how can a youth who is interested in a role figure out how to become a CEO of a foundation that covers, I don't know, multi-million-dollar endowment? What's that path to that process? So one of the biggest things that the goal, at least for my foundation and the work that I'm hoping to see in Detroit to ensure that folks stay is, one, how can we go from an internship to a fellowship to then a full-time position, and making sure that that's intentional. So this is not just finding these roles, but no, this is an intentional aspect of the work that we're doing, and that investment is made clear so the youth can see that as a possibility. So because I think most folks leave Detroit because, like, I have no opportunity here. I don't see how I'm going to get to the goal that I want. So I'm going to go somewhere else because they may have the opportunity. But if it was intentional and if it was clear, based on these institutions that are in Detroit, we will see so many youth staying in Detroit and remaining invested in Detroit. So that's me.
I just wanted to add something to his point. I think when he speaks about that, or when we speak about that, we're not asking for a rebrand of Detroit or that rhetoric that we hear. We need to rebrand Detroit. We need to get folks to come in. We have great resources in the city, great youth in the city. We have to invest in them rather than looking abroad to rebrand the city itself.
Absolutely.
Definitely. How do I follow that? Well, I think the big thing is we need to really break down how the problem really operates. And me personally, in my studies, there are 4 problems that Black and brown youth go through in Michigan: miseducation, mass incarceration, gentrification, and poor access to healthcare and wealth. Me personally, I'm big on education. I feel with properly educating the youth, we will equip them with the things that they need so they don't have to do credit card fraud or sell drugs or put them in a situation to where it could lead to their demise, right? In 1970, the high school systems were deindustrialized. So the skills that our grandparents had that paid the bills, like plumbing, electrical, welding, the skilled trades, they were taken out of the schools. So now I'm in school and I'm getting taught math and social studies and this, that, and the other. But when the last time the slope-intercept form has ever helped me get paid? No, that's real. Like me personally, I manage a 6-figure day trading portfolio. I've never used anything getting my degree, never used anything from that to help me make money. And that's what the youth wants. We want to, for lack of better words, we want to make money. We want to make money. We want to look good. We want to live an abundant life. That's what America was built on. It wasn't this hierarchical system that was made before us. It needs to be completely torn down. And I personally think that's why we're Gen Z. Because if you think about it, Z is at the end of the alphabet, and that's because we're the means to the end. Like after us, all the systems that came before us that put people in these places to not give everyone equitable resources and opportunities is gone after us. So, yeah, like, I stand on it. I really stand on it because, one thing about me, and I was telling Angelique, is I'm unapologetically me no matter who I'm standing in front of, no matter who I'm talking to, because I come from, like, I've seen it all. Like I've met government officials and I also slept on the floor. So I've been on both sides of the spectrum. And it's not okay that we have to live these lives that our forefathers, that this country was built on, didn't want that for us. When this country was built and found, it was built so everyone can have the same equal resources. And now we have all these capitalistic systems that don't allow us to have these equal opportunities. So I think it's very unfair, and it all starts with properly educating us with these tools and these skills so we can have great lives for us and our family. Because me personally, you know, when I have kids, I don't want to have my kid working $15 an hour. Like, I should be able to be 18, 19, making six figures. That's okay. That's really okay. You know, gas is $8, so you might have to make six figures. You know, it might have to come to that. But with the current curriculums and the current systems we have in place, it's not built for us to do that.
Is gas really $8 now?
Gas
I thought it
gas
was
in
$5.
California, gas in California, last time I checked, which was today, is $7.68 for premium and $9.19 for diesel.
Ooh-wee. I am going to open the floor up shortly for questions, so get all of your questions ready. But I wanted to, so many of the folks in this room do have youth councils or have worked with young people before. What is the counsel you would give us? Like, what does it look like when an organization does a really good job working with youth, and what does it look like when they don't? And Jeremiah, you're smiling.
Yes, I am. Again, I served on many youth councils. I'm big on framing. And I noticed that a lot of organizations, they'll say, we want youth to feel like they have power. How can we make them feel like they have power? And I go in and say, how can you give youth power in those spaces? How can you ensure that what they're saying, there's going to be solutions following after the words that you heard from them? And then another thing that I've noticed as well, a lot of organizations, again, going back to the point I made, that they have, or they trot out youth, they exploit youth stories for their own gain without actually ensuring that, that the youth are being secured in what they're actually hoping to get out of the experience. So it's ensure that it's a mutual beneficial experience for not only the staff at whatever organization you're working for, but also the youth who are there. And I think Skillman does a phenomenal job, not just because we're up here, because I told them in my interview, I will not be a part of an organization that's going to have me be decoration. I will not be decoration at an organization. It's just not happening. Okay. Not a decorative piece. And they've ensured by the grant making and by just us being here, proving that, although the youth actually can be a part of future building. So, and that's what I hope I see more in Detroit and beyond.
I think going off of that, oftentimes a youth council is just a box check for organizations. You're checking a box to, yeah, we asked our youth to do this and we're doing this. And oftentimes these youth councils are designed by the institution and bringing in folks. Versus, I remember this, Angelique recently met with us individually during our, with the youth council. And for me, when I met with Angelique, it was like, what are you trying to do as your career? What do you want from this experience? What do you want to do? Let's design this around you. So I think this is a good example of how do we design youth councils and advisory boards. You ask the youth, what do you want to get out of this? What do you want from this? What do you want your role to be? And design it from there. They're not asking you to make something and just be a piece or a pawn in your system. You need to design it for the youth and kind of by the youth. That's part of the reason that we're going to be kind of electing the next batch of youth council cohort and designing it. And even with your institutions, hire young people to design these for you. You don't need, when you have young minds and young people that have lived experiences, I feel like they have a better understanding of not only the situation, but also can connect with the experiences of young people that you're trying to bring on to your teams.
Definitely. I'm very big on legacy and very big on empowering the next generation. Like even me at 22 years old, I think about how can I build a life for my grandkids. One thing that the Honorable Marcus Garvey has said that it's easier to build a new generation of leaders than to fix the broken ones of today. And that really stuck with me because I'm going to pull this card, but raise your hand if you have grandkids. And if you have grandkids or even kids, their legacy is your legacy. So whatever footsteps that you make, they have to follow in regardless. So it's very important that you put yourself in their shoes. How would I want the ideal life if I was 19, 20, 18, 15, 13? How would I want an ideal life? An ideal life does not look like going to school and have to fear for your life. An ideal life doesn't look like getting out of school, and as soon as you graduate with a degree, you're sitting at home looking at job applications, filling out applications for Target and Walmart. That's not an ideal life when you're looking on TV and you see all these successful individuals who have an abundant life and you're just sitting there dreaming. No, we don't want to dream anymore. We actually want to do, and it's possible to do because it's actually have been done. So it's very important that the generation before us actually puts themselves in the seat and just actually, be quiet and take a listen. That's the big thing. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So you need to be quiet and take a listen. Like I tell my mother this, like me and my mother, we have strong debates. I'm like, Mom.
How did that go?
It went real well because my mom is actually listening. She's listening because she's like, wow, this is my creation. So in terms, this is me talking. I'm talking to myself, and I'm like, yeah, you really are talking to yourself because you raised a bright individual young black man, and I'm going to tell you what we're going to do to make sure that we keep our legacy in line. In order for your family to have a great last name and have a great legacy, you need to provide those opportunities for them that create abundance in their lives, so they don't have to go out and, like me, I would be doing my family a disservice to speak at this conference, then the next day do something dumb and get arrested. Like, what that says? All because I wasn't provided resources or opportunities that you guys could easily provide because you have it in your back pocket. A lot of times, to be honest, sometimes you guys are lazy. And you do need that young fire, that young mind to be like, hey, come on, like, let's go, let's keep doing it, let's push, because that's what we need, because, one day we're going to be the ones sitting in those seats listening to young people. And it's very important that you guys set that example and you guys set that great foundation so we can build off of it and we can thrive.
Complacency, comfortable with the way things have run.
Yeah, I think we've gotten too comfortable because we don't have a collectivism mindset.
That's very
Everybody doesn't. Long as me and my people good, we great. No, it's not about you and your people. Your actions affect your community as a whole. It's not about just you and your family. And that's why we have these systems in place. That's why we have mass incarceration. That's why we have gentrification and poor access to wealth and all these systems that really can be knocked down tomorrow. Because everyone is like, well, I'm good, so what do I really have to worry for? No, you're not. Because if I'm young and I represent you, that says a lot. So when I go places, I hold my head high because I represent more than just myself. I represent my ancestors who laid the foundation for me to make sure that I can be one of the youngest speakers at the conference. And crazy, one of the youngest speakers at the conference is a young black man. So I'm so happy and grateful.
Thank you. Do we have questions? Yes.
So I have a couple comments first. I think it is upon all of us, seriously, every single one of us in this room, we have got to make sure that this message extends beyond this. Everything that we have heard today is truly remarkable. Also, shout out to another one of your your team members, Preston Wellborn, who is an incredible photographer. My question is, as we're all in this room and we're hearing the dynamism and the entrepreneurial spirit, one of the things that frustrates me as someone who does fundraising in nonprofits, also does a lot of education in Detroit, is we're pushing everyone towards skilled trades right now. Pick up a hammer, do this, do that. But there is so much entrepreneurial spirit. There is so much art. There is so much beauty that is happening in the city. How do you all feel about kind of being put in that box? And what do you think a solution is to that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think to your point, the focus isn't just one sector. We need to create pipelines that go to every sector. So for example, we need to provide where black and brown students can pursue higher education. That's grad school. Let's take med school, for example. What's the med school demographic breakdown to? We all know the details. How many black and brown students get into med school, can afford it? We need to make pipelines that are not just focused on one sector, from arts to music to everything in between. We need to create pipelines, especially out of Detroit public school system and systems in Detroit, that allow young people to pursue their passions and go the route they want to, but they have that resource and that opportunity to do so.
Do you want to talk about the program you're in at Wayne State?
Yeah, so Wayne State, in 2016, they established a direct combined program focused on giving access to Black and brown students. 8-year combined program, you start undergrad at Wayne State, you finish your undergrad, and you start medical school afterwards. And the whole tuition is paid for all 8 years. And that's a great pipeline. It's bringing in students not only from the city, but also out of state. A lot of Black, brown students out of state to settle in Detroit and work in Detroit. And a lot of our work our curriculum is built on the Detroit community, serving the blind in the healthcare system. That needs to be replicated in different avenues. And a part of that is when you build these pipeline systems, you need to make sure that it's being built by people who reflect the communities it's being built for. I think that's essential. So if you're going to create something for Black and brown communities, make sure your team leadership and your people creating it are Black and brown. So you have to reflect the communities that you make decisions for.
Yeah, just one thing, just to piggyback off him, it's very important about the representation that we are represented, because how are you going to create social change for me, but you don't know the everyday life that I live? So me personally, like, I live in a neighborhood that isn't the best, but I make it the best. So how dare you come into my community, as we say, how dare you come into my hood and make rules and regulations and try to create opportunities, but there's no representation of us. That's very unfair. So when we say this, is so you guys can actually go back and recreate. And I guess, for lack of better words, that's where the rebranding should be. The rebranding should be, make sure that your executives and make sure that your leaders reflect the changes that you're making, because it sends a big contradictory statement, and it's not going to get supported. And with us Gen Z, like, if we don't like something, we're going to tell you, like, no. So make sure that we are fully represented and we are fully actually supported as well. Not only just represented in that you guys take it to consideration and actually do something when we ask you guys to do it, because it's not, we don't just think for us. You know, we're thinking for all of us, because I know if I can eat off an opportunity, some of my friends can as well.
Gen Z and Detroit. That's a Detroit thing too. If I don't
Yeah,
like you, I'm gonna tell you.
The Detroit is the thing I love about Detroit, and I'm sorry to get off subject, is, you know, we have some of we love to work. We love to work. We love the grit, the grind, the hustle. But we don't, where does that come from? That comes from not having those equal opportunities. So it creates that mindset of I'm hungry, I'm starving, so I need to go out there and get it. Like, I have a friend that works 90 hours a week, and I'm like, yo, like, you don't really have to do that. He's like, yeah, I do, because I have to make money. And it's like, well, imagine if he had an opportunity where he had a job where he was working 35 hours a week, but still can feed his kids. Yeah. You know, we have lives outside of just working for an organization who don't even care about us when we go home.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, just the role of mentorship. I think it's really influential and better, because I think I've had several mentors who have helped guide me in the ways in which I want to, to reach that goal. So I think just having executives just say, hey, to a high schooler who's interested in finance, hey, the CEO of a bank, hey, how can I help you get to where I am? Just building that relationship with different leaders and organizations, I think it plays a major role as well in building those pipelines. Yeah.
So first, I can be loud. So first, thank you for this conversation. It is the most important conversation of the entire conference, so that's just one thing. It's been a pleasure to get to know all of you. So I'm going to ask an uncomfortable question, because I do that quite a bit. So I am a leader of a youth development organization, and I am straddled between serving our youth, giving them power and voice, but also with the traditional old school donors who really want to create tokenism and that, pony show of like what youth should be like and what they should learn. And so with philanthropy, that's a big struggle, because you've got this archaic system of people who have power and wealth to fund programs like ours. And so what from a youth conversation, how do we dismantle that so that we really can have youth-led conversations, programming, and also philanthropy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, because I've had several conversations about this with various organizations, you can't invite me to a table that's already mine, in that sense. So, and working through that, how can we best go about doing that? And that's by being unified as a youth organization. So I actually oversaw the MOCAD Teen Council for a period of time while it was going through its issues. I'm not sure if you're familiar with arts and culture politics in Detroit, but there was a major issue where youth just were not being heard. So we unified. I mean, they got executive director positions, and we went up against the board and said, hey, what you're doing is not okay. And we will not be tokenized by you. We're not going to be talking to any more donors. Have an understanding. And that understanding was had, and now things are running smoothly. So it's being unified in that sense. Because what happens is, going back to that organizing piece, if we're not organized, we have all these different ideas and different plans, and it's not intentional, we're not going to get anywhere. And that goes beyond youth councils and youth boards. That's just in general.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I would, just to piggyback off what he said, I think sometimes you just have to pick a side. Do you is it youth or what's been currently going on? Obviously, what the old stuff is just not working anymore. It's just really not. And I'm sorry to tell you guys, but it's just the old system. It's just not working anymore, and we don't like it. And the reason, and you can tell that we don't like it because we're protesting, we're changing the new normals, we're changing the narratives because we just don't like it, and it's not sufficient for us. So what we need to do is say, okay, bring you to the table, you to the table, you to the table, you to the table. Sit them down and be like, okay, listen to this you. Bring us all to the table. The collectivism, I shouldn't have to go through you. Help me, for real.
I think a part of it is the responsibility of philanthropy, too, to change that, to not see ourselves as, these are the beneficiaries of our benevolence, right? Like, we have to stop telling ourselves that story. These are the designers of our collective destiny, and we're lucky to invest. So when we start to change that, I think it changes. Yes.
Hello. So I'm a leader of a cybersecurity at a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and I hired a number of Gen Zers for my cybersecurity internship, right? And so the struggle here, and I think you guys can help me, right? Because I appreciate your brilliance, your drive, your creativity, and I love to empower the youth within the organization. I want to teach them everything I can to get them to continue to grow as well, right? So I guess the issue I'm having is, how do I help them be sort of reasonable as far as, for instance, I hired them in as an analyst, and 3 months later they felt they should be an engineer or even a manager, right? And so, for me, I'm still kind of old school, of course, and not saying that they can't be a manager one day, but how do I still motivate them, but get them to understand that this is a process. You will get there, right? It's not going to happen tomorrow. I know you want to be successful. I know you want to make the money. I know you want to do all these things, and I believe that you can, and you will. You'll achieve even higher heights than I have. But how do I get them to be patient and still motivate them, through this process?
Yeah, there's one piece you mentioned there. You said you want to empower them. That goes back to my framing piece, right? You want to empower them, and youth already have a power innately in them, in that sense, right? So just one being would say, hey, they already have the power, but how can I then enhance that power that's already innately in them? I mean, I noticed too with internships and fellowships, adults are planning these things, but without any youth advice or counsel to actually build out that internship so that it can be approachable and applicable and interesting to the youth who are actually going to be serving in those roles. So I would suggest, personally, is for you to hire a youth advisory board to support in co-developing an internship or a fellowship so that you can actually get out all these ideas with them, say, hey, that doesn't sound too much fun for me, you know, before even jumping into an internship role like that. So you're actually getting useful voice even before you get the project rolling. So actually in the development and building phases of the work that you're doing.
Thank you. I know we have one more question, but Mohammad, did you want to?
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I feel like to your point, not everyone, as a young person speaking, and I'm sure they can relate. Not everyone has a process that they want to follow to get to where they are. Some people have the drive to do it now or have the ability. So kind of designing something that has a pathway that shows them these are the skills that you need to be a manager compared to your role right now, and kind of being transparent about it. Like, these are the skills I'm expecting. It doesn't matter about your age or experience. If you have the skills, yeah, you're my manager. So kind of being transparent in that design and what that looks like. And I think that goes a long way in young people when they see, like, okay, they're being transparent with me. These are things that I need to do to be actually in the role that I want to be in.
I want you to hold that challenge because we're going to come back to that shortly. Yes.
Hi, everyone. Hi, my name is Letitia, and I serve with the YMCA of Metropolitan Detroit, and so I'm a lifelong Detroiter. And so many years ago, I used to be the young person in the room, right? I was a 20-something-year-old executive director pushing all the buttons. So now I'm the old lady in the room. I don't know how But there's one thing, and I want you to help me with this, too, actually. One, I want you to speak to. The one question is, you're all young males in the room. Do you see, is there any nuances or variance with young women in your generation? And what are the different challenges between females in this generation and males in this generation? Because I did not see a young lady on the panel. And I was just curious about, and any number of reasons could have been. So I'm just curious from you three young males, what do you think the differences and nuances from your male perspective? And then the other question that I have is, how do we get you to listen? Because I don't believe all old ideas are bad, because experience can help a new idea get rooted and grow. Because sometimes experience can help.
Absolutely.
And I just think sometimes when I'm working with young people, and I still think I'm young, whatever. Sometimes it's like, because I don't believe that that's true. And so how do we listen to each other?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, first, to the first question, I believe behind every great king is a more powerful queen. I'm a love women, and I come from a family of women, and I feel like the women are the new generation. They are the new leaders. And there needs to be more spaces for women to thrive, because without us, where do we all come from? Who do we all come out of? We come out of a queen. And me personally, I stand on respecting, loving, empowering, enriching, and caring for Black and brown women, because they're at the bottom of the totem pole for no reason. Like, they've been put there because these systems have been in place to say that you're not good enough. But we have Black and brown women who are good enough and even better and can perform better than some of us males. So there needs to be rules and regulations put in place, just like, you know, we have Title IX and things like that, to where they have to be a certain amount of women demographic, because there's nothing that says that they're unequal to us. If anything, they're a little bit more superior to us because they can do things that we can't do. Women go through things that I won't even fathom. So I put women before I put myself sometimes, because that woman is going to birth the next generation of kings and queens. So when we having these spaces and having these conversations, yeah, we do need to take account to, okay, how many women are going to be there? Because me, you know, I want to see some women. You know, I want to be around some, like, you know, it's I'm an athlete, so being in locker rooms, you see, you know, having all these barbershop talks with males and stuff. Like, I want to have like a women role model, a women platonic friend, or a women mentor that I can look up to, because you guys have a brilliance. Like, I always talk to them about just moms, about having a mom mentality. The mom mentality is create something out of absolutely nothing. And
I want to ask, I'm watching Jeremiah, who's
Oh.
thinking through, I can see when the wheels are turning.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I don't want to interrupt Logan, but so I can't speak to the role of women at all because I'm a man, so I'm not even gonna attempt to. But I can say all of my mentors have been women, and majority of them black women. One of them is over there, Kalisha Davis. I have to give a shout out. Because they've ensured, they've nurtured me through, including my mother as well. Let me not shut up. So I've been supported and nurtured and guided by women who have ensured that I have become the most respectable, the most ethical, and leader that I can be. So I accredit all of the work that I've been able to do and the work that I hope to do to the women who've been supporting me. And I only hope that I can give what was given in that same way. So then again, we need to have an advisory board with all women so I can figure out exactly how I can go about doing that and building out that process. Because again, I have no clue, and I'm not ever gonna sit up here and pretend like I do. And then to go to your second question about how you can get youth to listen, is if they feel supported. Because again, if I didn't feel supported by Kalisha or by Angelique, I wasn't going to listen to begin with. And then ensuring that youth are at the front lines, but they know that they have adult support as well, that they feel and know that they have support behind them or with them on the front lines together, but allowing youth to lead the way in that way.
Yeah. I just want to say, I think firstly, we have to acknowledge our privilege as being males, and I think that's where it starts, when you acknowledge that you have a privilege of like being a male. You're privileged in different circumstances, and to this point, unfairly. I think that's a start, and you utilize that mindset to, like you said, the circles you have, how can we do something where we're being advocates for them? I think that's where it starts, and from there you grow. And to your second question, I think, to this point about support, I think it's the trust factor. If I trust that you have my best interest, as an organization, as an institution, I'm going to be willing to listen. Or else I'm just going to be pushing and challenging you with different things. So I think it's about trust in that aspect.
About half of our youth council are young women, and these are the folks that stepped forward and said they wanted to come. So that's the reason. And actually, I thought that they would be a great panel, as they are. And hopefully they modeled listening right now, to your point, and engage in further conversation. So one more question, yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, I'm Kenneth Kelly, and young man, I have the pleasure of serving as a chairman and CEO of a bank that's African American owned. And I want to tell you to continue to put your voice into the space. To each of you, you represent the 3 C's that I think are important: confidence, understanding challenges, and most importantly, your character. I'm going to call out one other gentleman. He's a very sophisticated banker in the room. I see across the room. Tom Schaefer, raise your hand. I want you to leave, before you leave this stage, knowing you got 2 bankers here that are willing to reach out and speak into what you asked for. So that was my comment.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. No, go for it.
Well, thank you to the 3 of you. This has been a great start to the conference. I hear a lot about confidence in systems and changing systems. I'm wondering sort of your opinion on government as solving problems, your confidence or lack thereof in government as a system, and what you are looking for from elected officials.
Absolutely. It's funny, we just had a lunch. We were talking to 2 folks who worked out of the mayor's office a few administrations before in Detroit. And they said at one point there was an opportunity where the mayor would actually come meet at the end of the week, and they would have all the department heads there, and the folks were actually allowed to come up there and say, hey, my lights are off. What are you going to do about it? And they could not leave out there until a solution was made. And for some reason, we've strayed away from that direct result, and then just going outside the government piece. But what if philanthropy was like that? where leaders, executive directors, and CEOs of philanthropic spaces will actually sit down at a table, say, what can we do to provide, what can we do to support you? I mean, that would change the game, I mean, for real. So that's my perspective on that. We need to get back to serving folks in the individual level instead of just trying to support a group, and then, because folks are gonna slip through the cracks. And I think that's been the issue, at least in my opinion.
Jeremiah, can we acknowledge Mayor Archer since
Oh,
that
yes.
was
Oh, yeah. That's his right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
perfect.
that was Mayor.
Oh, yeah. Mayor Archer. Yep. Absolutely.
I believe things have become more systematic and less grassroots. We need to actually get back in the community. You know, when the last time you've seen a government official walk down your block? They don't. When the last time you seen me drive down your block? They don't. And it's funny how government officials make rules, regulations, and laws and bills on things that don't even affect their everyday life. And it's unfair. Like, for example, abortion laws. People that make abortion laws shouldn't be males. Like, why are we making these? Like, that's real. Like, why are we even making these laws? I can't speak on nothing. Like, I'm a basketball player. How am I going to tell a football player what you should do on the field? And it's like, it's so contradictory. So it goes back to the point of where I was saying, like, you know, maybe you do need to, if you can't relate, just be quiet and listen. Mm-hmm. Actually, just be quiet and listen. Things don't have to get said. You don't have to, or be, how can I help? How can I advocate? You know, you don't always have to be the man in control and the person pressing the buttons. You know, it's okay to not be the point guard every time. It's okay. So what we need to do is get back on a grassroots level.
Mohammad, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Did you want to have the last word?
Yeah, I was going to say to his point about grassroots, politics has become about power and prestige. We're holding closed-door dinners for fundraising to get into elected offices and do nothing. But what we need to do is how elected officials ought to serve is you knock doors, you engage with your communities, you ask what their needs are, and you go to office and get those needs met. So until we get to that realm and try to do those things, I think there is going to be always a trust barrier, especially from Black and brown communities. And secondly, representation. If I'm living in a district that's majority Black and brown, my elected official should represent that. And I think that's where we need to get to, and to have that trust or that engagement with our political and elected officials.
Yeah, and then even beyond race, and have a like-minded interest within the work, because, you know.
Values.
Yeah, and values as well. And then he made an interest, I mean, a great point as well, in the role of accountability. I really love when a leader says, I am sorry. Which it seems to be really difficult for leaders to say, I am sorry for the harm that I caused to whatever the issue is. So more leaders stepped up and said, hey, I am sorry for what happened in the past. How can we improve the future for you? So that's, yeah.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge a Gen Z Detroit artist who did the slides for us today and did the illustrations. Alexis Bagley is her name. I want to say thank you so much to each of you for your words and your wisdom and your work around the year. I want to thank the Detroit Regional Chamber and all of the conference workers and the Grand Hotel staff for all that you've done for us. Okay, so today we want to offer a challenge, which is over the course of the next year, we want to help any organization that wants to work with youth strategists on wrestling a major strategic, hairy question that you have. And so Huntington Bank has already signed up to be one of the participants. Rocket has signed up. Triumph Church has signed up. Is there anyone in this room who would like to join? Detroit Pistons. Say the name of your organization. I know for you, yes. City Year? Awesome. Terrific. Yes.
Remington Group Mission Education Excellence Foundation.
Terrific. Little Caesars.
Fifth Third Bank.
Fifth Third. Hop Tech. Yes.
Junior Achievement. Detroit Horsepower. Team Hype Youth Development.
Oh, terrific.
Detroit Parent Network.
Thank you.
Teach for America.
Oh, cool. Yes, ma'am. YMCA. Life Remodeled. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Determined Exceptional Fearless Youth Program.
Thank you so much for, Downtown Boxing Gym, yes. Terrific. Yes. Lisk. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. Thank you for joining.